You're listening to The Pump Fake. With your host, Jarrett Bailey.
And welcome into the latest edition of The Pump Fake, everybody. Jarrett Bailey with you as always. And joined today by NFL extraordinaire, the king of content, Mr. Theo Ash. How's it going, buddy? Good to see you.
Good to be here. Good to be here. You look different in every podcast clip in your intro, I feel like.
I've had the many faces of Jarrett. Certainly, sometimes it's just mustache, sometimes the beard's a little thicker, sometimes the hair's a little. You never know what you're gonna get. That was funny. Today, Theo and I are gonna break down my top 30 quarterbacks. We're going to agree on some, I'm sure. We're going to disagree on some, I'm sure, and that is going to be the fun part of today. So I know where you stand on a certain amount of guys. One in particular, being our boy Baker. So I'm going to be intrigued to see the debate that follows there. But yeah, let's hop into it. So I'm going to put this on the screen briefly because it is a little bit of an eyesore, and then we'll take it off and reference it. But here's the list as a whole for everybody watching on YouTube. The top 10 being 10 through 1, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Jaden Daniels, Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, Matthew Stafford, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. So I guess we can kind of start on the back end if you'd like to, wherever you want. If you see a number that you're like, all right, that guy should be higher, and then we'll just kind of bounce that off each other. Is there one that sticks out where you're a little bit higher on somebody or lower than somebody?
I think we should start at the top here.
Okay.
First of all, I don't think it's a bad list. I think every column, right, of 10 is kind of the correct column of 10. But maybe within each column, I'd order some things differently. But let's start at number 1 in the first column here with Mahomes at 1, Allen 2, Burrow, Jackson, Stafford. That's your top 5.
Yeah.
I like still putting Mahomes at 1. I think even though the numbers were down last year in the regular season, he still turned it up a notch in the playoffs like he always does. And when you look at like who is an actual good proven playoff performer in the league right now, like it's kind of Mahomes and Hurts, I guess, at this point, and everybody
Which is
else.
pretty crazy when you think about like big game performers. Like I think Jalen Hurts definitely has to be in that conversation of like Mahomes and then who. I mean, he's got to be there at this point.
I always think playoff success is something that gets over talked about because I feel like at any point in the league, there's only like one guy who is really setting the bar that no one else can really clear. But yeah, Mahomes at 1, I agree with. Allen at 2, I think is fine. I think Lamar does have to be in the top 3, though.
Sure. And I think that's where most people would push back is at, okay, what order? Because I think the top 4 is pretty undisputable. It's just a matter of what order you put 2 through 4 in. I'm, the unapologetic Josh Allen mark that I am. He's, it's going to be hard to talk me out of putting him at 2. And I think with Burrow, obviously Cincinnati hasn't been to the playoffs in the last 2 years. He was hurt in 2023. Defense was really bad last year. He played out of his mind. And I think, he's got a lot more going against him and still playing well than, someone like Lamar would. I understand that, he's got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but with Lamar, he's always had, high quality players around him more so than I would say with Burrow. But I wouldn't argue too much with people saying I think Lamar should be 3. So I think that's fair. Let's see. Let's bring it back up real quick.
I think there is a tier break from the top 3 to Burrow. I really do.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's give you the screen and let's talk about this. Give me your Joe Burrow hot take here.
I just think Burrow at 4 is totally fine. I think undisputably is a top 5 quarterback. But I think when you look at what the quarterbacks in the league have accomplished, I mean, it's tough to put anybody above Mahomes, Allen, and Lamar when it comes to winning MVPs and putting the team on their back and consistently getting to the playoffs and consistently having great records and consistently having like number one offenses. I just don't think Burrow has quite done what they have done over the course of his career. And I don't think he's quite as gifted in terms of putting a team on his back and carrying them. And I think the line is certainly a huge issue for him, and he's always overcome that. But the receivers are so good that it's just at a different level than what Allen was experiencing last year, or what Lamar has experienced at any year of his career, or Mahomes since Tyreek Hill left. Like the fact that Burrow can, throw a screen or a slant and Jamar Chase can take it to the house, or, he can be a little bit inaccurate and T. Higgins is still going to come down with it. I think it's such a great advantage. And when you look at where Burrow put up a lot of his numbers last year, or where he was most efficient, it's all against man coverage. Against zone, it's a little bit more, middle of the pack, I'd say a little bit, which middle of the pack for maybe the elite guys, right? Like not number one in the whole league. He is against man. And I think that speaks a lot about his receivers. And I think it is a huge help to him. And he still hasn't quite accomplished what the top three have.
Yeah. And I'll even piggyback off that a little bit. Like during the Super Bowl run, even like he wasn't great in the playoffs. He wasn't horrible, but I think his defense made a lot of plays. Like the game against Tennessee, where they sacked, or they had Logan Wilson had the interception late in the game to kind of keep Tennessee from winning that game. He was sacked like 10 times.
Is this the Raiders game?
The Raiders game, he was better than Tennessee, I would say. But they had to they overcame. They played the Raiders in the wild card, played Tennessee in the divisional round.
Why do I have? Oh, I forgot about that Tennessee game.
I think a lot of people did. Yes. Yeah.
No, they did, didn't they? Yeah.
Remember that just like random 2-year stretch where the Titans got. I think the Titans were the number one seed that year. Actually,
that was the year they were the number one seed in the AFC. Holy cow! I'm not locked in.
And then, somehow that domino fell and Arthur Smith is now the offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh, but that's neither here nor there. So, yeah, I do think that there's fair pushback against Burrow when it comes to, all right, he needs to get back to winning in the playoffs and play better overall in the postseason as well. Yeah, the accomplishment argument is a valuable one and a valid one. Is there anybody else in the top 10 that you might reshuffle? Because, I have long been a Justin Herbert guy, but at some point, show me something, please. And had a golden opportunity last year against a beatable Houston team, threw 4 interceptions, 2 of which, granted, weren't all on him, but come on, man, I need to see something out of you. And again, valid excuses of, he's throwing to Lad McConkey. His receiving core looks like a 1960s ABA team where it's just a bunch of random white dudes, and just all right, go make that work, Justin. So again, not all on him, but at the end of the day, if you want to be considered in that upper echelon, you got to show me something.
Yeah, I think it's hard to defend Herbert at this point. He's had 2 really underwhelming playoff performances. And that's what it's all about. You got to be good in the playoffs. The point is to win the Super Bowl. Right. As long as putting Herbert outside the top 10, I think is crazy. At 9, right. I think it's a little more valid. I still would have him above Jordan Love, though. Herbert really did, and I struggle with it because I think Herbert really did show something for much of last year. He only had
protected the ball really well.
He protected the ball really well. He avoids sacks like always. He is so good in the intermediate levels, right? Layering it over the corner in front of the safety, against zone in a crowded pocket, right? You've got to really have some serious arm talent to get anything done in those situations. And he's probably the best, from a busy pocket, layering things, which is, I think, a really important skill to have. Hits the top of his drop and can shuffle kind of up through the pocket and around kind of at the same time. I really like all the movement there. He hits high-end throws while protecting the ball in a way. 3 picks last year. That's Aaron Rodgers stuff when you consider the big-time throws that he's making. So, man, I thought he was secretly kind of an MVP candidate in the regular season because there was no run game to speak of with the Chargers. And Greg Roman was actually deciding we actually need to have a high pass rate for the first time in his career. He put a lot on Herbert's plate, and he was delivering beautifully with really only one good weapon. So I was like, man, yeah, he's undisputed, like top 5 at the end of this regular season. And then of course he has that stinker. So what do you do with it? So I might have him a tick higher, but I appreciate that he's still in the top 10. And to agree with you, I like your placement of Stroud at 6, even after the down year last year. I think it's totally fine to say, look, the line was just too bad for him to get anything done.
And to counter that, they traded away their best offensive lineman. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that brings this offseason. The thing with Herbert, like, I think it's a bigger Chargers thing overall. Like, what do you make of their style of building the offense around, like, their team building process? Because they signed Najee Harris and then immediately drafted Marion Hampton when they could have drafted Matthew Golden, who went right away after that to Green Bay. I just feel like they could have done a better job over the last few seasons of getting him more talent out wide.
Definitely, I agree. I did like the alt pick over Neighbors last year, and I think Harbaugh building a strong run game and a strong trenches is going to pay off for them in the long run. I think about like the Eagles, right? They had Lane Johnson and Kelsey, and I think Mailata when they won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. And they still had kind of those pieces when they got back to the Super Bowl in 2022 and ended up winning it, right? It's still Stoutland. It's still an elite tackle. It's still special things they can do on 4th down, right? Because of the line that they've got. Like that, regardless of quarterback, regardless of wide receivers, regardless of even defense, right? The offensive line saw them through multiple eras. So I think investing in that area, it's not sexy. It's always solid. So I like that they're doing that. And I like that they have the best, or maybe the second best tackle duo in the league, or an elite one at any rate. But yeah, definitely with Hampton, I feel like that was kind of a luxury pick when the rest of the receiving core was kind of struggling.
Right. You brought up Jordan Love, and just to let everybody see again, I do have him ranked number 7. With him, seeing what he did in 2023, I was immediately on board. Last year suffers the injury week 1 against Philadelphia, was kind of playing with a bum leg for the rest of the year. I think fully healthy with an upgraded receiving core, that's one of my dark horse MVP candidates this year. I picked Green Bay to be the number 1 seed in the NFC, so we'll see. But I mean, that's a guy. There you go. I wasn't.
I like to hear it.
We didn't even plan it, everybody. It's great. This is on the incredible podcasting right here.
The Pittsburgh Green Bay synergy is
it's pretty on one right now, actually. So yeah, I love Jordan Love, and I think that's a guy who's going to have a huge year, fully healthy. Looking forward to seeing what Matthew Golden looks like in that offense. I don't know. The receivers wise, I mean, is Romeo Doubs going to be there? Is Dontavian Wicks going to be there? There's not enough room for everybody.
Well, they made Bo Melton a corner at practice today. He's doing DB drills, so maybe they got a couple more position changes up their sleeve. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they made a trade with Doubs. He sat out a game last season, was kind of unhappy. He's had a lot of concussions, but he's a very good player. So maybe he's kind of the odd man out because he's got value in a way that the others don't quite. But yeah, I think Jordan Love, it's smart to still be in on him, even though he did have some indefensible games and some indefensible picks last season. Sure. I mean, you talk about a bad playoff performance. That was him against the Eagles, just throwing boneheaded picks. The one to Bond, still don't know what he was seeing or doing. But I do think that injury had a lot to do with kind of the down year. He did get hot in November again. And play, I think, at an MVP type of level for several weeks again. The Cardinals game was unbelievable. And then from that point on, he was stringing together multiple like great performances. And then Christian Watson got hurt.
Yeah.
And they went from, with him on the field, they were the most explosive passing offense in the league. Like they were hitting big plays with Jordan Love at a unbelievable level. And then once he was out, they just couldn't beat man coverage and things got bogged down. And a couple other players missed the playoff game, Elton Jenkins, right? So I think there's a lot of reason to believe in the Jordan Love bounce back, the arm talent, the aggressiveness, the way he avoids sacks. I think he only took like 14 last year. It's a pretty rare blend of skills that Jordan Love has got. But the aggressiveness can definitely get the better of him sometimes.
Yeah.
And he's got to beat some Jameis Winston allegations in that way. Like, do you really trust him when it's a one and done series in the playoffs, right? Like you can't have any dumb turnovers, right? Like you can't cost your team the game. and it's game 2 next time, and you just have to be better 4 out of 7 times. Like, if you have a stinker, it's over. And Jordan Love has had some really terrible decisions in the playoffs.
Yeah, he has. Even going back to the San Francisco game of the divisional round a couple years ago, where he played a largely like very good game, but the interceptions were very timely and cost them.
And inaccurate the whole fourth quarter. It wasn't just the interceptions. Things kind of fell apart generally for him.
Yeah. I think tools wise though, like there's still a ton there to be excited about, and still a guy who's only entering his 3rd year as a starter, and I'm excited to see what they can do with him this year.
And someone who had led a better offense than I think people realized last year. Like, the Packers were top 10 in EPA and top 10 in success rate and top 10 in yards per drive. And he, again, didn't take any sacks, and they were the most explosive passing attack when their deep threat was out there. And that was with more drops than any other team as well.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to the second row here, because there's one that I have an opinion about that I'm certainly lower on than most. I put Gino Smith at 16, which I think will get a lot of pushback from certain people. I shouldn't say I said certain people like it was like a horrible thing. I like what the hell was I doing? I think that Gino Smith is certainly an above average to good starting quarterback on his best day. I do think, however, that a lot of like the Twitter film folks overrate him, and he's become like this beloved guy of the film community, where throws a pretty deep ball. When he's on, give him a ton of credit for that. He'll also throw a soul crushing red zone interception that will just break your back. And I think that there's got to be some give and take with that. So, again, I think Gino is good, but I do think he gets a little bit overhyped. So I put him right smack dab in the middle, and I think that 16 is a fair ranking. I think that too many people are going to be like, oh, the Raiders, maybe AFC West winners. Like slow down a little bit. I don't think that's happening. Again, think he's good, but I do think he gets a little bit overhyped.
I think that's definitely a fair criticism of him after last year. But I'd also say, like, once you get out of the top 10, that's a criticism that a lot of quarterbacks have. I mean, Baker threw 14, 15 picks last year and took more sacks behind a better offensive line. So when it comes to negative plays, like, he has a lot. And Rodgers was one of the least accurate quarterbacks in football last year. He missed a lot of passes. Well, Gino, like, he might throw picks, but when he's not throwing picks, he's usually on the money. Like, when he's not over aggressive, right, and he's under pressure, just kind of throwing it up, he's really, in terms of pure accuracy, maybe the top guy in the league. Since he became Seattle's starter, he has 2 seasons over a 70% completion rate. And that's while being aggressive and pushing the ball downfield. All right. This is not like a screen heavy, like even a West Coast heavy type of system he was running with Ryan Grubb last year. They wanted to take long dropbacks and really push it. And yet he was still, always accurate behind that line. In fact, in terms of catchable ball rate, he was tops in the league, ahead of Jaden Daniels, who's a great naturally accurate passer, and ahead of Joe Burrow, who's a great naturally accurate passer. So I think Gino's accuracy and pocket, he's brave in the pocket, right? I think those two things are a pretty special combination that I value more than any skill set that I think Baker has at 12 on your list, or even Rodgers at this point, right? After last season.
I think with Rodgers too, like, and I've made this argument with, a lot of different people. The Jets were bad. Yes. I think that their record gets too bundled in with how he performed, because I think largely he was fine. If you look at quarterbacks with at least 150 dropbacks, he was still top 10 in big time throws and still at the bottom of the league in turnover worthy plays. So like there was still a lot of like vintage Rodgers there, and their record in 1-score games was just so below the norm. Like if it just reached league average, they're an 8-win team. So I think a lot of that, the Jets struggles, weren't necessarily overlapped with Rodgers' struggles. He's a 28 touchdown guy. Which again, raw box scores don't necessarily tell the entire story, but I do still think that there is something there with him. And, if you asked me this year, hey, who would you feel more comfortable with to lead you far in the playoffs at quarterback? Would it be Aaron Rodgers or Geno? I would pick Aaron. And a lot of that does come off of, reputation and being a 4-time MVP. But I would still feel okay with him being, in that 15 range.
Yeah, he's still got a lot of juice in his arm, and he's still somebody who wants to spread out, play shotgun, get a lot of width to the formation, and have weapons up the sideline, right, stretching the defense, and then, some sort of weapon over the middle as well. And with all that width and the juice in his arm and just the fact that he's Aaron Rodgers, like, yeah, there's still a lot of high-end throws in there. But when he's playing in that kind of space, maybe there's not as much pass protection for him. He's someone who doesn't really want to create the way that he used to and had some kind of turtling moments or just kind of like not even trying. That's Rodgers' big issue, right? Like there are times where he just doesn't even try. He just wants to throw it away. He's just like, this place sucks and burns it instead of trying to make something happen. It'll drive you nuts. So he's still got those vintage Rodgers moments. He needs to lock in, and he needs to feel protected and feel confident in his receivers in line in a way that he just didn't last year at all, which is partially his fault because he doesn't do anything to build chemistry with them. He doesn't show up to training camp or practice extra or try to get along or talk to them or be a leader. So
what do you make of Kyler being 17 on the list?
Kyler, what is that? That's slightly like below average to average. I think that's okay. Yeah. I think that's okay.
I feel like every year we go into the season and be like, oh man, Kyler's going to have a big year. And then for the first 5 weeks of the season, we feel confident in that. And then slowly but surely that just goes out the window. I need to see him finish a year strong, which we haven't really seen. Even like when they made the playoffs, they started off like 7-0 or whatever it was. And then snuck into the playoffs and faced Los Angeles and just looked really bad in that game. So I need to see a complete season from Kyler Murray.
Yeah, he's somebody that maybe just has kind of a long learning curve. I do think he's doing a good job becoming a better pocket passer in Drew Petzing's scheme. It's not all just kind of no huddle, basic concepts, like just go out there and be an athlete, Cliff Kingsbury stuff. It is more control for him at the line of scrimmage, which has had really ugly moments, and it's had some good moments as well. So maybe he can continue to ascend as a field general, but yeah, it's been a steep learning curve for him. And obviously, he just hasn't really remained healthy or playing at an elite level down the stretch any season of his career, which is a big deal. I do like his rushing threat. I think he's kind of an underrated running quarterback at this point. Like people think of Lamar, people think of Jalen Hurts. I don't know if people think about Kyler Murray as one of the top runners anymore, but he hit like 22 miles an hour last year, and their run game was one of the most efficient in the league, largely because of the threat that he is. So I might boost him a little bit because of that. But yeah, he's not someone that I'm trying to put in any kind of top 10 conversation at this point.
Yeah. He's another tools guy where like the arm's huge and you know what he brings as a runner, but like I need to see a complete year of it. I put Purdy at 20. Where do you fall in the Brock Purdy conversation?
I think he's pretty limited. I don't think he's quite as limited as like a Tua or anything like that.
I did put him above Tua. We agree on that. Yes, definitely.
I think he's very shifty, right? Like he kind of mitigates issues in the pass protection because he can make you miss and he can get out to the perimeter and scramble. And he's had a lot of back-breaking moments in that way. But I think that's really what his superpower is kind of that scrambling stuff. It's not even so much throwing on the move as it is like, I made you miss and now I can kind of tuck and run and scamper for that first down. He's not somebody who can do the Josh Allen things where he's hanging on the sideline, right? And he's throwing downfield. Very few quarterbacks are able to do that. And Purdy doesn't have that like create on the move downfield ability even, I think. I think his accuracy gets pretty overstated. If you do get a hand on him, he's not going to like break tackles. He's pretty small. And I think his arm talent is a serious weakness when he has to push the ball downfield, like go balls, like deep down the sideline, it can kind of die on him. He had some ugly moments in weather games last year, right? So I just think he's someone who needs a really good receiving core to create explosive plays. Yeah. And he had that at a point. Last year, he didn't have that so much, and the explosive plays didn't come. And he also was holding the ball a really long time and not checking it down, not looking at the running back whatsoever. I think that was a bit of an issue last year for them as well. So I'm okay with the 20th placement for Purdy. Yeah, maybe a few spots higher, but nothing much.
Yeah, and the big pushback that people in the Purdy camp will give, or at least that I'll give to them, is like, you're paying this guy now $2 million less per year than what Josh Allen is making. Everybody kind of wrote off Buffalo last year once Diggs was gone, once Gabe Davis was gone. Oh, who's going to throw to? The Bills are going to fall off a cliff. So if you're going to pay a guy roughly the same money, the excuses can't be, well, Christian McCaffrey was hurt, Brandon Ayuk was hurt, Deebo Samuel wasn't the same. Like, well, they're paying him to elevate everything around him, and if he can't do that, then why are you paying him to begin with? So this is a big, I shouldn't say big prove it year because he already got paid, but I feel like this is going to be a year in which we certainly find out what he's truly capable of, because Ricky Pearsall is going to be taking on a much bigger role. And there's been a lot of turnover when it comes to, the guys who made that team, the great team that it was for a stretch. Most of them are gone now. And it certainly feels like a new era in San Francisco with a lot of those guys gone.
Yeah. I think there's probably 5 guys worth paying max contracts to.
I agree.
And if you're paying guys who aren't one of those 5 more than one of those quarterbacks, your team build is just not going to be Super Bowl caliber. It's just not. I like Jordan Love, but was he worth paying? I don't know. I like Trevor Lawrence, but was he worth paying? I don't know. Clear at this point, no. And yeah, Purdy definitely is in that camp where it's like, how are you going to win the Super Bowl in a season where Purdy is making more than Mahomes? Like, how can you have a better team than the Chiefs if your quarterback is making more and is worse? Now, that's not the case right away, right? Like, all these contracts are backloaded, and then once the bad cap hit years hit, they'll restructure things and push more money. So it'll never get quite to the point where Purdy has a $70 million cap hit, like he's slated to in like 2028 right now or whatever. But it's still eventually, like, he's going to become pretty expensive, right?
Sure.
And those years, I think that the 49ers window will be closed in those years.
Where do you fall on Trevor? Where'd I put him? I put him 13. I would love to put him higher, but again, that's a guy where it's like, you got to stay healthy. The last time he was healthy, they were a playoff team. They won a playoff game. They were 8-3 in 2023 before he just kept getting different injuries and they fell off a cliff. And then last year, it was a dumpster fire. Doug Peterson was just clearly checked out. I think a lot of the team was checked out pretty early on.
Yeah.
And then he finishes the year injured again. I would love to see a completely healthy Trevor Lawrence. And I think Liam Cohen being there now, we saw what he did with Baker Mayfield. Hopefully he can do similar things with Trevor and maybe help Jacksonville. I don't know, win the AFC South, but it's a relatively open division where it wouldn't completely surprise me.
Definitely. I think Trevor has a lot of potential still. The accuracy stuff is tough to swallow with him, and it's why I wouldn't put him in my top 10 either. And I think his pocket presence took a step back last year. Like, that used to be one of his defining characteristics and what made him great. Last year, I just didn't think he was avoiding sacks and avoiding big negative plays backwards at the level that I'm used to with him. So, yeah, and he got hurt, like you said.
Yeah.
But, man, I think he's got one of the best arms in the league, like one of the kind of Josh Allen tier,
certainly,
like, cannons. And when he's on and he feels comfortable and he is sliding around the pocket in a way that makes sense, like, I love that combination. When you've got the arm to be aggressive and test tight windows downfield, and the ability to just subtly slide around and make the defense miss, like, that is a formula that will make me rank you extremely highly.
Yeah.
And Trevor had that, still does have that. And I'm feeling pretty good about him going into next season. Like, I watched all his 3rd down and long snaps, and, like, there are so many good plays that got dropped last year on that.
I was just going to say the drop rate that he faced last year was astronomical.
And it's been top 10 every year of his career, the wide receivers drop rate. And for him to have a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. and now Travis Hunter, who has elite ball skills, right? Maybe the best coming out of college we've ever seen. Like, it's so good. He never drops passes. For him to get paired with a guy like that, I'm super excited for it. Like, I was like, man, if you just replace Gabe Davis with Travis Hunter on 3rd downs alone, like, Trevor's numbers would be astronomically better. Like, his efficiency would skyrocket, because he made winning plays on that down that ended up not being winning plays because they just got played in the air horribly.
Yeah, just go look at the London game alone where Gabe Davis dropped 2 gimme touchdowns against the Bears. Or just like, bro, like, you got to do something to help your guy out.
Exactly. And it's been that way for T-Law's whole career. So he's not blameless, certainly, but it's also not his fault a lot of the time. So yeah, 13th, I think, is a very fair spot for him.
All right, let's look at the rest of this. I put Drake May ahead of Caleb at 18. I put him ahead of Bo Nix as well, which Broncos fans loved me for. I think that most people in our line of work are in pretty solid agreement on the Bo Nix front, where I don't think he's a horrible quarterback. I expected him to be coming into the league. I didn't expect anything from Bo Nix, and he already exceeded those low expectations. So good for him on that. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to put him, in the top 10, top 15, when I think Sean Payton has a lot to do with a lot of the window dressing stuff that they did last year to, take a lot off his plate. So I said that Drake May was going to be the best quarterback of last year's class. Obviously, Jaden Daniels was out of this world, but I think Drake, working with just the complete lack of weapons, a coach that was already fired after 1 year, an offense that didn't really seem to work with Van Pelt under the headset. I think with Josh McDaniels now, more competent weapons with Stephon Diggs, Kyle Williams, I'm looking forward to seeing what he does this year. I think the Patriots are going to be a playoff team, and I think that Drake May is going to have a huge year.
I don't know if the Patriots overall are going to be a playoff team, just because I don't think the weapons situation has gotten completely sorted yet, and I don't think Will Campbell's going to fix their offensive line in year one.
Oh, not a Will Campbell guy?
I like Will Campbell a lot. I just think that he is going to need a little bit of time to develop.
A little bit of seasoning.
I think he's a little bit more of a developmental prospect. The more I watch, the more I'm like, okay, the punch, like it's so strong, the grip strength is, but like variation is needed. And he got pushed back a lot into Nussmeier when he was kind of left one-on-one. Now he was left one-on-one a lot, and he was on an island all the time. So I think he gets bonus points for that. But there are some things, I think he's going to allow some pressure year one. I do. But I still like him. I think he's going to develop. But even so, like, it's a weak link unit offensive line. So even if he's all pro, is the right tackle still going to be giving up pressure for Drake May? Like, yeah, probably. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying about May. Ranking him highly at 18, I think is fine. He's super physical. He can break tackles. He can create in the backfield. He's fast. Like, he averaged more. He almost broke Vic's like yards per carry record or something.
Pretty crazy.
Right? Like, he's a supreme athlete, and I think once his situation gets better, he is gonna be a franchise quarterback.
Let's look at that far right category. Sam Darnold at 21, Bo Nix 22, Tua at 23. Yeah, Tua is one of those guys where, all right, if he has good protection, if he doesn't have to create, if he's got two of the fastest human beings on earth, if he's got a competent offensive mind calling the plays, and if it's greater than 70 degrees, he'll play pretty well. If one of those things is gone, things tend to fall off a little bit, and that's why I just don't really see him as a guy that will take you to the Super Bowl, and why he's ranked where he's at.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a quarterback I'd want less than Tua. Like, and a lot of that has.
I'm glad you and I see eye to eye on that.
And a lot of that has to do with his injury history. Like, a lot of that has to do with the fact where I don't want a situation where he gets another concussion and I'm the one whose
that's fair.
franchise is responsible for that, because it's just gotten so scary. And his skill level, I think, is just not quite good enough to justify it. Like, he's led so many good offenses is the thing. But like I said, I just think there's about 5 quarterbacks who are actually worth a max contract. And I think you can have a really good passing offense with really good weapons. And I think Jimmy Garoppolo showed that in San Francisco. Was he ever a top 20 quarterback in the league? Like, I don't know. But he's probably still top 10 in history for like EPA per play. And they were a buzzsaw when they had him. And I think Tua is the same thing. I think Tyreek Hill is a really unique weapon, not only with what he can do with the ball in his hands and the way he can take things the distance, but also the space he creates for everybody else on the offense, right? When you have that kind of deep threat and you have to play, cover 2, that opens up the middle of the field for all these inbreakers and digs. And Tua's evolved in such a weird way, right? Where he's really, really good at getting the ball out fast and looking guys off and hitting kind of that one specific throw. But his skill set has become so limited where it's kind of just that. And we see teams like McDaniel was talking about when he played Belichick, they just put a safety in the spot where Tua wanted to throw to. And some of those invert kind of Tampas with the safeties coming down and robbing the digs. he can struggle with those. I would just want a quarterback who can run. Like if I was building a team, I would not really be interested in a quarterback who is as immobile as Tua. So there's just a lot of things that kind of combine where even though you can build a good offense around him, there are so many situations where it's like, like you said, the situation has to be just right.
Yeah, it seems like if you can find like a good middle hook guy to put in the middle of a defense against Miami, that makes your chances of success go drastically higher. So we'll see with them, man. I do think that if we're doing bold takes right now, I think that there's a real world where the Cardinals fail to reach expectations, the Dolphins have a bad year, and Kyler Murray gets traded to Miami and Tua gets sent somewhere else, where Kyler could maybe be McDaniel's, not to say that Kyler's on the level of Matthew Stafford, but McDaniel kind of having his McVay moment and finding a better quarterback that he thinks he can win a little bit more with.
Kyler might be the exact opposite kind of guy that he wants, though. Like, okay, you need to get rid of the ball in 1 second over the middle. Kyler
That's true.
Like,
Kyler holds the ball.
No.
Fair enough. Looking at the rest of this, Bryce Young was a guy. Bryce Young gave a lot of people a lot of hope within the last 6 weeks of the year. I think that he'll be higher on the list this time next year. I still worry about Carolina's defense as a whole, so I don't know how much games they're going to win, but I think Bryce showed clear progression, which was promising to see if you're a Panthers fan. That's another team that still needs guys to step up weapons-wise, but I think they could use, like, if they can trade for a guy, that would be something worth exploring as well.
Yeah, I believe in Young. I think I'd put him a little higher. I might put him. I'd rather have Bryce than Bo Nix, I think.
Okay.
Bryce just got his magic back in terms of his elusiveness, right? Where he's just kind of doing some really creative things, and he's got that Kyler Murray-esque quality where it's, what did Myles Garrett describe him? Have you ever chased a chicken, right? Like he's small, but he's got such good range of movement, and he can even like make himself small and become like harder to hit. Usually you think like bigger, harder to bring down. Kyler's got not Kyler, but Kyler as well. But Bryce has got that thing where he almost reduces himself, and guys like can't even get a hand on him because his surface area to actually hit has gotten so tiny. And then he kind of pops back up and makes a really quick throw or something like that. So I really like what Bryce Young showed. I think as long as he's got that quality back, which was just so missing when he began his career, he was the easiest guy to bring down in the league. Yeah. Like he was getting smoked. They just bring the blitz and he'd turtle and just go down. Like the fact that is now gone makes me think he can move up a little bit. Now, there still might be a little bit more of that as the season like goes on. Like we play a full 2025 season. The fact that it's just going to be like great from here on out, it might not go down quite that way. And I think his arm is a little bit limited where he gets a bit inaccurate if it's like a far throw from the far hash to the sideline. Like he doesn't kind of have that unlimited arm talent and accuracy. But he did show enough where I think like, okay, there's a lot to work with here still with Bryce. He was the number one overall pick for a reason.
What do you make of Penix being ranked here? Because we only saw 3 games of him and whatnot. We'll see. I have high hopes for him because especially rewatching both the Washington game and the Carolina game, like there's a lot to really like in terms of his arm, but more so than I originally expected. And I think he'll have a nice year. I just don't know what to make of the Falcons ever. And our mutual friend Chase Thomas is probably in the same boat right now.
Yes.
But I think
actually, I know exactly what to make of it. They'll have no pass rush and they'll win 8 games.
Yeah, that's pretty, when you put it that way, I guess it is pretty easy to pencil in where the Falcons will be. I picked them to win the division this year just because like eventually, and this is so lazy, I know that, but the Bucs aren't going to win it every year, right? Like eventually there's got to be a slight fall off with all this turnover.
If you have Baker at 12, like what's good? I know. Baker's the best quarterback by far.
I do.
They should win it.
They should. I do wonder if, the constant turnover at offensive coordinator will eventually play into things a little bit, even though it's within the system. I get that. But I don't think the Bucs will be bad. I think there's just always at least one division where something slightly surprising happens. And that's kind of the one that I was like, all right, I'll give Atlanta a shout here, even though I have zero confidence in it.
I mean, your Penix I'd put above Cousins just because I think Cousins is pretty cooked.
Where do you think he plays this year, by the way? He's going to get moved, but where's it going to be?
Who would trade for that contract, though? Like, are they going to cut him? No one's going to trade for him.
Maybe. We'll see. I think I don't know.
I think he's going to be a really expensive backup.
You think so?
I just don't know who
maybe
would
a trade
for him.
deadline guy.
Maybe. I mean, it would have to be a real contender that goes down. Like if Stroud went down or something, and like, okay, we got some cap space, like we're really good or something, like the line is working or whatever. Like maybe I could see that, like he's some break glass in case of emergency option. But like right now with Rodgers in Pittsburgh, the musical chairs is over.
Yeah, there's very few potential seats left. Yeah, I wonder if
except for Cleveland, but
Cleveland or Indianapolis is one that I would maybe circle.
Yeah. Indy, though, like Jones has a top 5 cap hit on the team for one season,
which is crazy. What were they thinking? We'll give Daniel
so you've
Jones
got that,
$14
and then you've got Richardson, who hopefully will be healthy by week 1. I kind of think the season will start with Jones starting and end with Richardson starting. Is kind of where I'm at right now with that. I don't know if there's room for a Kirk Cousins in that contract.
Yeah. But, by the way, none of Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson are on the top 30 list. I would love for Anthony Richardson to do something, but my goodness, man, like that is the definition of just like raw. That's Anthony Richardson, where you just see him, specimen of an athlete. And I've made this joke several times, but one of my favorite things is, seeing the ticker at the bottom of the screen at like week 6. And it's like, oh, Anthony Richardson's 8 of 30 for 220 and 3 touchdowns. What the hell's happening right now in Indy?
Every week I was hoping to see something good with that, and it never was good. It never was like,
just so sporadic.
But as far as Penix and Cousins go, I think I'd rather have Penix just because he's got that FU arm. Like he is another one of those guys, like elite arm. I mean, the throws he was hitting versus the Panthers were just ridiculous. And I get that it's the Panthers and like he's got no pass rush to deal with, and he can just like fully torque and step into the throw, and it's awesome. But there were some throws where it was tight coverage, right? Like there's a cover 2 look. They got somebody up the sideline. And he just whipped that thing in there. The guy didn't even settle, right? He kept running, right. And he ran right into the safety, and the ball somehow got there before the safety did. Like just a wicked throw. Like people should just watch the highlights. He had one throw where he like winded back and like hit kind of this like wheel up the left sideline after initially looking right. I think it was Ray McLeod, and that thing went like at least 60 yards in the air, like on a dime. Like the fact that he's got kind of this mentality of like, I'm going deep, I'm hitting the most dangerous route if there's even a sliver of room. I like that. I like that a lot. I do think he can be a bit of a statue in terms of getting his hips to where his eyes are. Like if he starts in a pure progression read, you read it like a book, maybe like you start left and then you'll scan kind of from left to right at all the routes that are kind of breaking into your vision. His hips don't really like kind of move with him there. They're kind of stiff. They stay in one spot and his eyes move. And then he makes the throw and his upper and lower body can be completely disconnected. And that causes some pretty major accuracy issues for him last season. And that's what I'm worried about. Like, how good can he get his mechanics when I think he's a bit of a limited athlete in his lower body after all the surgeries that he's had? So that's my thing to watch with Penix. That'll kind of make or break him, but he's got a lot of potential, and I'd put him. I'd rather have him as my starter than Cousins.
Yeah, no, that's the very valid argument. I think I only put him there just because it's only been like 3 games, and I do want to see more, but I do have high hopes for him. I think that him and Zach Robinson will make pretty good music together this year in Atlanta. I think it was Sycamore that ranked them as him and Drake London as the number 10 pass quarterback receiver duo coming into this year as like his big bet team. I was like, all right, man, we'll see. I appreciate the boldness, but that's definitely high regard for 2 guys that we've seen pretty limited reps together.
I could definitely see the argument there because London's should absorb so many targets there.
Yeah, sure.
like does London end top 10 in receiving yards? Like I can easily see it because there's just not that many other players for Penix to throw to at a super high volume. Yeah. London's just in a class of his own in that room. Although Mooney did put up almost just as many yards last year. I don't know if that'll happen with Penix though.
Where do you fall on the McCarthy stuff? I think that he was a guy that wasn't asked to do a whole ton at Michigan, and he's going to be asked to do a lot more in Minnesota. And that scares me a little bit. I know that roster-wise, everybody seems to love the Vikings. I think that that's going to be a team that takes a pretty substantial step back. And a lot of 14 wins with Sam Darnold, man, like that's a magic carpet ride if there ever was one. I don't think they're going to replicate that in 2025.
I don't think so either. I think they can still be a good team because I think so much is good outside of the quarterback position. And again, like what have we been talking about with the Dolphins and the 49ers? Like, even if McCarthy isn't all that, with that type of team, I can still see good numbers. But I think he'll have more of an accuracy issue than Darnold had and more of a decision-making issue going to NFL speed. And all we've seen from McCarthy is the one preseason game that he played. And in that one, like, he ended up with like a good stat line or something, and he made some good throws. But like I remember like Darnold making a better one. Like Darnold had like this beautiful intermediate dig that he layered over a linebacker, right? And then McCarthy came in and he threw a bad pick to Jack Jones and then started to do better once the backups came in.
Yeah. And then everybody like freaked out over like a fly route.
JJ, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, Darnold clearly, based on this preseason game, is more ready to go in and face starters. And I think that we're going to see that in the regular season this year, where it's like, man, Darnold's just old, right? He's been in the league a long time. Yeah. He's taken his lumps. He's grown. And that's why he's a good option now at this point. Like, McCarthy's still got to go through all of that as good as the team is. So I totally get putting him at 30 because we've seen nothing from him besides like a pick to Jack Jones.
Right.
And some throws versus backups.
Absolutely.
In a preseason game.
Yes. Well, that wraps up the list, buddy. I appreciate you for coming on. I know you said, in the lobby, you're treating this like a true off season. Is anything fun coming from you in the near future? Anything that you'd like to plug?
Oh, yeah. The Stay Hot podcast is still chugging along with 2 episodes a week. So check that out, of course. And I am posting, albeit a bit infrequently, on TikTok at Theo Ash NFL. You can follow me on Blue Sky and Twitter at Theo Ash NFL as well. But yeah, there's not too much big on the horizon.
I love it. And next month, everybody, a football game will be played. Granted, it will be Taylor Heineke against Hendon Hooker, but we're getting very close.
We'll be lucky to get Heineke or Hooker in a Hall of Fame game.
You think so? Who are the third stringers for both these teams? It's going to be Trey Lance and
there we go. That's even better.
Who's the Lions' third string quarterback?
Is it David? Is it Tim Boyle or?
Did Boyle go back there? Oh God, he might.
I have no idea.
I know it was David Blau for the longest
Kyle
time.
Allen.
Oh, good. Pittsburgh Steelers legend Kyle Allen.
That's
good
right.
stuff. So Trey Lance
he probably needs the reps more than Kyle Allen.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen too much of him. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a little bit, or at least a drive or two. But yeah, Trey Lance versus Kyle Allen in 50 days is the Hall of Fame game. So strap in, everybody. We're chugging along and getting closer to football being back. Mandatory mini camps are opening around the NFL. So we're getting closer. Theo, buddy, I appreciate you for joining me, and would definitely love to do something like this in the near future with you, bub.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, for watching this as a pod or watching this on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff. If you're listening as a podcast, leave a review. We will be back later on the Pump Fake.